Well, hello there. I am sitting. It's kind of interesting. I'm actually standing in front of myself right now, but I'm sending this out for the Facebook Live people. We will be getting started in about 15 minutes. In about 10 minutes or so, I will be turning off the spatial audio, and you'll be able to hear the other people in the room talking. But right now, oops, give me one moment. I need to turn off the audio. There we go. So to be clear, I'm talking to the Facebook Live audience. Thanks everybody for taking a look. We are recording, in multiple, we're streaming and recording in multiple fashions here. Obviously, you're looking at me and the event is coming through on Facebook Live. I've also got a multi-screen recording going on for how this event is produced. And so, it's kind of weird standing talking to myself to explain what's happening on Facebook Live, but in about 10 minutes, we'll be getting started. For those of you who are watching, we would love to have you participate, comment, check things out. We will be following the comments here, so if you have a question, please post it in the comments on Facebook Live, and I will repeat it in the room so you can interact from Facebook Live in the Verbella environment. For those of you who haven't been in here before, we hope you can join us at the next one if you're not going to be joining us on this one. And like I said, we'll be getting started in right around 6:15. We'll be turning off the spatial audio, and you should be able to hear some more. But in the meantime, you can kind of see people walking around the room. And if you do have any questions or you want to talk to me, let me know, and I'll be following the chat the entire time. Thank you very much. Hey everybody, we're going to be getting started in probably about 5 minutes. So in the meantime, feel free to walk around, talk to some of the other people around you, meet everybody, say hello. That's one of the cool things about this spatial technology we have. But we'll be getting started in about 5 minutes. Thanks.
Where
How you doing, Craig?
Hello, Facebook Live people. Oh, I'm getting it right up in your face. Let me go down, bro. Hey, Facebook Live. I know some of you have been unable to hear. That's because right now we have what's called spatial audio turned on in the space. What that does is that means that the people who are near you, you can hear, and the people that are far away, like those people who were talking on the stage, you can't hear them. So sorry if for those of you who've been like kind of just watching and thinking that there is no sound coming through. But that said, we're going to be getting started in right around, I would say, 3 minutes. So when that happens, I will go back to the stage. I will turn spatial audio off, and I will ask the people in the audience to take their seats. At that point, we'll get the presentation started. But I did want to come up and say hello to our Facebook Live audience, since I know that there's a bunch of you watching. I can see that. As I said before, and as I will say again, if you have any questions or you'd like to participate in the conversation, please feel free to post comments in the chat here on Facebook Live. And I will be monitoring it throughout the event. So if you post a question here, I will be able to answer it or ask it in the room. Thank you very much. I'm going to go back to stage and start getting things ready.
Wave works too. Yeah, I got it. F1 actually, F1. But yeah, I got the wave on that too now.
Ask it.
Or just some more interesting topic, I think.
Ask it.
Cap for 30
There we
people
go.
per room.
All right. So just so everyone in the room is aware,
There's about a 10-second
we
lag.
have
Like a couple months ago,
turned
you said
off spatial voice. That means if you're talking in the room, everybody in the room can hear you. We're going to get started in right around 1 minute now. Again, I'll shoot a reminder up for those of you who haven't heard this already. We are streaming to Facebook Live. There's a little camera guy up in the corner back there. That's another me. He is recording, sending this out to Facebook Live. We do have, at the moment, about 20 people Watching from Facebook Live, Eddie Fuentes, thank you for saying hello from the Chicago Community Emergency Response Team. I see Kevin up there. I see Sean. Lots of people on Facebook Live watching us and checking in. Thank you guys for checking in. Are we at 6:15? We're right at 6:15, so let's get it going. So first of all, welcome everybody who is in the room, as well as those of us who are watching on Facebook Live. Really quick, for those of you who are in the room, let's do a real quick test on the raising hands function. At the bottom of your screen, you see a little button on raising hands, and I'm going to ask those of you who have been to this event either in person or in one of the virtual environments in the past, please raise your hand. All right. That's a pretty good number of you. I should raise mine since obviously I've been to many of them as well. All right, cool. In addition to that being a little bit of a test of the raise hand function, that'll also show you how to use that for the Q&A later. For those of you who have not been here, which it looks like we had a few, hey, John Martin, you can put your hand down now. You too, Mr. Cool, or MD Cool. But that said, for those of you who have not been in here in the past and don't know the history, this is the VRAR Chicago meetup. It started as a physical meetup in Chicago over 3 years ago. Our purpose, since we've started, has always been to grow the community of people who are actually using immersive technology. You know, we've had demos in the past, we've had a lot of networking in the past, and the purpose of this event has always been to help our audience. So those of you who are watching on Facebook Live and those of you who are in the audience here, the purpose has been to help you take your next step forward regarding, you know, whatever you want to do with virtual reality or augmented reality. If that means you have to meet a developer, great. If that means you're just trying to try the technology for the first time, we've always had demos when we've done this in the physical presence as well. Recently, VRAR Chicago also had a bit of a second mission, which I'll, if Chris Brennan is still in the room, I'll have you guys meet him at the end of the event. But because we've kind of been very successful at transitioning a physical event to a virtual event, it's also, you know, VRAR Chicago is now actually offering that as a service to other companies and associations and groups that are trying to figure out how to do it. So we're working with a lot of the webinar platforms, we're working with the virtual platforms. We have expertise in event production. Actually, we've got, you know, combined between the 3 team members, there's over 50 years of live event production experience. So if you want to talk about that, find Chris Wren after the event, and I'm sure he'll be happy to fill you in on it, or feel free to connect with him afterwards. He's raising his hand over on the stage right side, house left over there. With that, here's a real quick rundown of the agenda and how this event is going to go. So what is going to happen is we are going to start with, we're going to start with a couple of welcome messages from our sponsors. Hopefully you all are here for the VRAR Chicago event. There's our social media tags on the center screen right now. So feel free to please kind of like post on social, live tweet us, do whatever you'd like to do, or just like us, follow us so you can keep up with what we're doing. But we're going to start with a quick message from our sponsors because they're the ones that allow us to actually keep this event running. After that, we're going to have presentations from our expert panel up here, our speakers. They're going to speak for about anywhere from 7 to 10 minutes apiece, at which point we will go into a live Q&A, which is kind of the meat of this event, which is for us to get your questions answered. For those of you in the room, I'll go over how QA works in the room when we get to that point. For those of you who are on Facebook Live, if you have questions, feel free to just post them in the comments. And if I have enough questions on Facebook Live and, you know, the timing works out, I will ask them of the panel members in the room. And, you know, once we get through the QA, we will get back to some networking. So, you know, if you hear some of the people up here talk about something interesting and you want to follow up with them, you can meet them after the event here in the room and talk to them now. And you'll also be able to connect with people after the event. Everyone's contact information is on the vrarchicago.com webpage. And, you know, the only other thing I'll say is to please try to treat this like a physical event, which means make sure your microphone is muted if you're, you know, not supposed to be talking. Please try to stay in the seats. It seems like everyone's actually doing really well now. I'm sure throughout the event, there will be somebody who walks in the room and walks right up to the stage and stuff like that. But we do try to treat this like it is an actual physical event. And with that, I should probably not be standing at a lectern. I should just walk around a little bit because it's one of those things you can do in a physical event. All right, the only other thing that I have to say, which is a little bit of a housekeeping matter, is there are going to be some videos throughout our presentation. And those videos, when they do play, they should be playing on the center screen and they can get loud. So I just wanted to make you guys aware that when you do hear somebody calling for a video, or when you hear a video is about to start, it might get a little bit loud, so you might just want to check your volume on your computer. All right, and with that, I'm gonna welcome our sponsors, starting with Bundle AR. So first, here are our sponsors. These are the people who help us make this event happen. And with that, I'm gonna invite John Martin from Bundle AR to the stage. I believe, actually, John, I think I lied to you earlier. We are not gonna start with a video. We're gonna start with this slide right here, and then we'll go to a video. So John, let me see if you're there. There he is. Okay, I will shut up and you can go talk. Let me know when you want me to play the video. I think you're muted, John.
Thank you, Matt. As usual, we're terribly proud to be associated with the VR AR Chicago meetup and the amazing job that you've done bringing this together. Good to see some of our Bundle AR colleagues with us tonight. Welcome, everybody. I just wanted to let those of you that don't know Bundle AR yet, we are an augmented reality platform company. And due to the hard work of Matt Wren and our technology team, we're very pleased to let you know we've actually launched our augmented reality platform and our app last month. And we're very active talking to folks, including the great folks like Brad and Mark at Verbella. I think we're going to be doing a webinar together. So Matt's going to play a short video to give you a flavor for what we do, but really we got to update that to let you know what's going on with the platform, and we'd welcome a conversation with any of the attendees in the coming days or weeks if you'd like to see what we're up to with bringing augmented reality to training, learning, and development in particular. So thanks for being here tonight, and Matt, you can play the video if you'd like.
Augmented reality is a technology that enables you to place digital content in the physical world with a smartphone or tablet. Video, audio, call to action digital buttons.
Looks like we had a little bit of a video issue. Sorry about that. Let me try it again.
Buttons and animated 3D objects appear in context of what the camera sees on a user's phone. By using the Bundle AR platform, businesses and institutions can effortlessly integrate immersive AR technology into their communications platforms, helping you reach your customers, employees, and vendors through an easy-to-use augmented reality content management system, API, and mobile application framework. With our Publish Reality mobile application, you can enhance your static print and digital media and turn magazines, catalogs, mail, and menus into personalized experiences for your customers to pique their interest. Using Campus Reality, visitors can immerse themselves in AR tours with location-based digital guides to help navigate and inform them about the campus. Increase attendee engagement and provide valuable interaction data to exhibitors and sponsors at trade shows using Expo Reality, a simple augmented reality version of the passport-style treasure hunt game that's been a staple of the industry for decades. The true power of the Bundle AR platform is our ability to deliver augmented reality applications with your branding, while utilizing any of the features available in our content management system and proprietary API. We take the complexity out of the technology, so for your customers, it's as simple as point, click, wow. By using branded AR applications from Bundle AR, companies and institutions such as Procter & Gamble, Arizona State University, the DuSable Museum of African American History, and Assa Abloy have elevated their relationships with trade show attendees, prospective students, museum visitors, and customers. To learn more about how Bundle AR's AR Made Easy solutions can revolutionize how you connect with your audience, please visit us at bundlear.com.
Thanks, Matt. And thanks, everyone.
Sorry if there were any little glitches there, guys. It's a little bit of the platform. Let me turn the lights back on really quick. Yeah, I was, I noticed that the video glitched out a little bit, but as it goes to video, I was kind of watching the live stream. So sorry if you were sitting in silence for a few minutes. John, if you want to go back to the audience, that's fine. Or if you want to sit up on stage, it's up to, I guess there's not spots up on stage, are there? So yeah, I might want to go back to the audience. But with that, let me go to our next sponsor. That was Bundle AR. Our next sponsor is 1871. It's a bit of an interesting situation. 1871 is our physical venue sponsor. They have been for over a year at this point. And, the interesting thing being that we haven't been able to meet in person at a physical event for the last couple of months. However, they do still support us. They share the event out in terms of the virtual event every month. They do, we do have a space available to meet in person whenever we get back to being able to meet in person. For those of you who don't know, 1871 is Chicago's technology incubator. I believe there's somewhere in the range of 400 companies that are based out of 1871 right now. They are the number one business incubator university. What is it? Number one university affiliated business incubator in the world. And that is 1871. They are our physical event sponsor, which, we hope at some point in the near future we'll be able to get back to doing physical events. But even then, when we do plan to always have a virtual component from this point forward. And luckily we've managed to partner with this really great organization called Verbella that is, sponsoring us in terms of having a virtual location. So Marco, if you want to join me up here and say what you want to say about Verbella, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thanks, Matthew. And let me see, yeah, slide is up there. I just want to thank everybody for joining us in this platform. This is the reason why we built this thing, right? It's for communities like VR, AR to be able to gather online and share a sense of place with their friends and colleagues, especially in times like this. So really thankful for this organization and everybody coming here on the platform. Hope you enjoy. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to reach out to me. You can reach me at ms@verbella.com or just go on our website and fill out any of the sales forms, and we're happy to help. Thank you all.
All right, and that was Verbella, our virtual location sponsor. I do have to say, who's that walking up on stage right now? If you don't mind, please go take a seat in the audience. This is a live event. Thank you very much. So that is Verbella. VR AR Chicago has been using Verbella for the last several months. We like them so much we actually got a team suite here. Tom? And with that, we're going to move into our first speaker and our first presentation, which is going to be Ray Dethridge from GTI. Ray, you want to join me up here?
Absolutely. So let's try to get up here without tripping, guys.
And with that, I will sit down and shut up. Let me know when you need slides changed or video plays or anything like that. Thank you.
So good evening, everybody. Thank you, Matt, and the ARVR Association for inviting GTI tonight to share what we've done for first responders. A little intro on myself real quick. I've got 27 years of experience in the natural gas industry. 14 of these years have been involved with developing, delivering, and maintaining first responder training, specifically for gas distribution utilities, as well as community first responders, such as fire departments, police departments, as well as the public works departments. And 4 years experience in evaluating, developing, and deploying VR, AR, XR training technologies for these different stakeholders. So with that, the next slide is going to be a couple screenshots of a couple VR development projects that we have done, GTI has done personally, as well as our VR developer, Pixel VR, for first responders. The one that we've created is for a gas utility personnel and fire department, which we have a short video that we're going to show here shortly. And then our developer has been involved with some state grant development for fire departments for rollover tankers, as well as rail car rollovers. So if you can play the video there, Matt. So excellent. That video, next slide, then my last slide there, Matt. So that video actually gave me an example of 7 different training modules that we've developed, with the emergency response one being the last one. So we're in the process, GTI's in the process of working with the gas industry to develop an entire library for the different tasks that field technicians for gas utilities do perform on the pipeline. So that's our primary user. Depending on the module, the users may also consist of, like, as I said, first responders from the fire department, as well as police and public works. Currently, we started this journey. With Pixel VR 4 years ago, when I was with a gas utility and had the opportunity to make the first commercialized VR training module for the industry. And then since joining GTI, I've had an opportunity to develop 6 more with funding from the gas utility. Our plan is to develop 6 to 10 modules a year moving forward, depending on the need from the industry and the funding. And then some of the new exciting platform features that we're going to add to our VR training modules is a virtual classroom. So this virtual classroom will allow users of the platform to grab a piece of equipment, bring it into a virtual classroom, similar to how we're here today in a virtual conference room, bring it into this environment and train remotely. With travel restrictions for utilities that operate across multiple states, you're now allowed to, now you can do this remotely with up to 16 users. And that's one of the features we're developing out right now. The next one is an OQ evaluator. So people that work on the pipeline are required to be qualified per the federal government, the pipeline safety standard. So we're creating an OQ evaluator tool that will allow us to evaluate evaluatees, trainees, consistently each time, even if that trainee does not have, even though that evaluator may not have the experience in that task. Now you can use the OQ evaluator tool to do that. And then lastly, as more companies become familiar with the technology, VR, AR, XR, they may start developing their own, but don't have a platform to deliver it. So that's a little background on how GTI is involved with VR, AR, XR, and first responders. And once again, thank you for the opportunity, and look forward to answering any questions that you may have on our work. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Ray. So, yeah, I was going to say, for those of you in the audience, feel free. You've got, if you click the little arrow next to your name, you can do things like clap and I think cheer. I'm not sure what some of the other things are. F2 seems to be cheer, F4 is clap. But the little arrow next to your name in the menu up on the top left allows you to, have some sort of reaction for speakers. Yeah, I hope that people are not going to be dancing in the audience during this particular portion of the event, but that's also a possibility. With that, the next person I would like to welcome to the stage is Dr. James Mullins, who is the Chief Technology Officer of Flame Systems. So, James, are you, see if you're standing up and getting close? All right, you're there. Thank you very much. With that, I will leave you.
Well, thanks very much for the introduction, Matthew and Ray. Some amazing work GTI doing there. So thank you very much for having me. We might just jump straight into the video if we can, Matt.
All firefighters face the challenge of feeling prepared, confident, and ready to fight the next fire. It is difficult for training organisations to safely recreate the conditions of a real fire for training firefighters. There's now a new, safe way to prepare firefighters for the fireground, Flame Trainer, a world-first firefighter simulator that uses virtual reality and haptic technology. Flame Trainer immerses firefighters in a real fire scenario where they can feel heat and hose force, along with realistic sound and vision. You can set up Flame Trainer in around 10 minutes. It comes in 2 suitcases, with backpack, self-contained breathing.
Looks like the video might have frozen. I'm gonna give it one more shot. Sorry for those of you. Sorry if we have to start from the beginning.
Apparatus.
Again,
Hose reel and branch, virtual reality subsystem with computer and interfaces, heat suit, and scenario software. The equipment fully integrates with industry standard firefighter personal protective equipment, realistically simulating all of the firefighter's senses. To enhance training outcomes, Flame Trainer
That's right, Matt. We can move
yeah,
on from
I'm
that.
gonna let that one go. Sorry about that.
No problems at all. Well, thanks very much, everyone. Hopefully, some of you may have seen some of our technology in the VR AR trade press lately, but I thought I'd share our journey of where we've come from. I guess my background, I'm a robotics engineer, worked in the robotics for police, military and medical space for about 15 years. I'm also a third-generation firefighter myself, so I grew up on a fire truck as a volunteer here in Victoria, Australia. Around about 10 years ago, working at Deakin University down here in Australia, we discussed immersive virtual training technology, and the VR technology was evolving. We started to combine, I guess, my two passions, that is firefighter training and immersive learning. And I guess a few years later in 2017, we had a proof of concept. And we're offered some floor space with HTC at CES, and that's when we went viral with about 1.6 million YouTube hits in a week in the firefighting community. So that really showed us that I guess we had something unique and something exciting. We spun out Flame Systems not long after, and are currently supplying firefighter and first responder technologies for training in over 20 countries. I guess we might jump onto the next slide if we can, please. Our vision really is to develop the virtual technology and immersive learning for a couple of domains, and we started off in fire, and we've got firefighter training technologies, but initial firefighter technology trainers as well. So we have fire extinguisher trainers, for example, and that seems to be a product line that's generating quite a bit of interest because everyone should know how to use a fire extinguisher. And I guess I'll look to the audience for a show of hands of anyone that's actually used a fire extinguisher. Fantastic. Got a couple out there. But really our vision is to create learning technologies for hazardous environments. And to do that, we combine the physicality of the firefight with haptics and immersive technologies, biometrics, and VR into a cohesive, easy-to-use system for training. We might jump on the next slide, please. So to do that, we always look to provide safer training methodologies. So traditionally, we use hot fire training props, which are ultimately the gold standard in firefighter training. But unfortunately, it's getting harder and harder to get access to hot fire training due to environmental reasons. But it also it's a big source for contaminants in the firefighting industry, and the carcinogens that are released from traditional hot fire training, especially for instructors and firefighters that get a lot of this training, are cumulative, and we can see some pretty nasty health effects. We might jump on the next slide, please. So we saw three main reasons where we can make a difference in the emergency space, and I guess the risks of life are obvious. We lose too many good firefighters in training. I'm not sure if you can see the figures there, but quite a few firefighters are lost due to medical reasons, but many more are lost due to contaminants, as I said before, with cancer in later life. There's also an economic cost. There's over 9 million firefighters globally, and it is very expensive to try and get access to hot fire training in the traditional sense. And certainly environmental. We've closed down here in Australia many of our training grounds due to the PFOS, PFOA contaminants from firefighting foams used over the years. And we were looking for a better way to train our firefighters how to deliver this the foam products. Next slide, if it can, please. So we try and recreate as many of the sensors as possible in the VR environment. So we can heat you up to over 200 degrees. We can give you the jet or nozzle reaction forces pulling you off your feet. We can capture your air usage and your breathing respiration rates and your heart rates. And we get people coming out of our system after about 15 minutes. They're dripping in sweat. They've had a physical workout, and they are fully immersed in the environment. We might jump on next slide, please. And so what we came up with the system that's designed to be portable to take the training with you. We spent a lot of time simplifying the experience so an instructor with minimal computer or VR training can run a session. I'm sure many of you know that's not a simple task from a VR perspective, as VR certainly has some quirks. But we spent a lot of time hiding that from the end user so that really the training outcomes are what we're looking at. We'll go to the next slide, please. So, to do this, we spent a lot of time really looking at the models of fire, water, smoke, and foam, and spent well over 10,000 hours in our dev team working on the modelling of those behaviours. And it's not a simple thing to do at VR, AR frame rates so that we don't feel VR sickness and we get that immersive training outcome. And to do that, we've worked with a lot of leading industry bodies globally, and certainly as our models continue to evolve, we're getting some great feedback about how the learning outcomes are evolving using this kind of technology. I certainly believe that we need to create physicality in our training as well, so that the tactile, the touch, the feel, the haptics, the heat certainly immerses people in the environment compared to just traditional VR, AR training, I guess. Slide, please. So I think there were a couple of videos on these ones, but this is sort of showing that some firefighters get pretty involved. We'll jump on to the next slide if we can. We had a young fellow over in Hawaii recently putting his nozzle in through a car window to attack a car fire. He'd been working on it for a little while. He was pretty exhausted. He went to lean on the car after he'd put the fire out, and obviously the car wasn't there. So we've all seen those videos on YouTube, I guess, but we had to catch this young fellow. Next slide, please. So we're now actually over 40 training environments, and it's really about creating environments and letting the instructor to drive the training outcomes. We might jump on the next slide. I know I'm short for time. But I think it's important really for us developers that are really looking to develop training outcomes for a specific industry, and our industry is in the fire space, obviously, is to fit that training into the training continuum. And it's you have to be very careful to work with the stakeholders early on to understand the domain and to integrate it, and to not push too hard too fast. And it's something we've certainly learned, that the VR environment and the AR environment for that allows us to create things that we can't do traditionally. And I think once you allow people to experience what we can do in this space, then they become evangelists, and it doesn't take too long to turn people around. But firefighting is a very traditional space, and it's taken us quite some years to push into this market and to certainly get to the global space that we're at now. Slide, please. So of course, as any immersive training company knows, we need to be used and recommended by our clients, and we were lucky enough to get access and embedded in the US Air Force very early, and that certainly led to some great credibility and helped us sell into many other different organisations, different fire services. But certainly our early adopters are military in the Air Force space, because these are firefighters that hopefully never see real live fire in their life or in their career. But we need to be prepared for the 1%, and hopefully this kind of technology allows us to do this. Finally, I'd like to finish up. I thank you very much for your time this evening. I look forward to talking to you all soon and hearing what you're doing in the immersive VR AR space. Certainly, if you're interested in our technology, please reach out to our friends in Chicago at WS Darley and Kevin Sofin, I see is here in the front row, who can help with the demo. And thanks again for your time, and stay safe.
All right, thank you, James. I see a lot of people in the audience clapping. That's awesome. Thanks for playing along and finding that function. It's kind of neat. Up next, our next speaker is going to be Carla Bond from Upskill VR. She is the founder and CEO of Upskill. Carla, I know you got a video to play also. At least yours is relatively quick, so hopefully we don't have too many glitches, but I will get that ready to go. As soon as you tell me, I'll play it. But if you want to introduce yourself first, that'd be great. think you're muted, Carla. There we go.
I fixed it. Thanks, Matt. I want to first thank the AR Chicago for inviting me back. It was a great opportunity to be on the panel last year, and I'm thrilled to be back here again this year. And to my fellow panelists and everybody tuning in, it's a pleasure to be here with you guys, and I hope you're staying safe, and I'm grateful to share this evening with you. As Matt mentioned, I'm Carla Bond, and I'm the founder and CEO of Upskill VR. I can remember the first time I took a CPR class while I was on active duty in the Navy. I can't tell you how often we see folks standing in the back struggling to stay awake. So now fast forward to the first time I actually had to perform CPR, I was sweating bullets. Not because of the compression rate, but because I was scared. I was scared I was failing my shipmate. I was scared of the fact that I could be doing something wrong. I didn't have the confidence that I should have had in that situation. No one prepared me for what it felt like when that mannequin that we practiced with became a human being. And in this case, it was a fellow sailor that I had just spoken with in the cafeteria. And as a first responder, I've been a volunteer fighter and EMT for quite some time. We get told a lot that our real training doesn't start till we get to the field. Think about it like this. If pilots were to say, don't really learn to fly until you get up in the air, we'd have planes crashing everywhere. That would be crazy. They have hours and hours of simulated training before they're allowed to fly. So I was thinking, what if emergency response had the same level of standards and verification of hours for real simulated practice? So instead of getting a sense of what we'd be facing when we get in these emergencies, we're actually in a control scenario bearing very little resemblance to reality. Instead of a simulated cardiac arrest, what we're working with is the upper half of a lifeless plastic doll, or AKA a mannequin. That's why I founded Upskill VR, because I want to give people the confidence and the practice that when you're needed in the field or needed in an emergency, that you have the skills and the confidence to step up when somebody needs you most. Our immersive VR platform gets you CPR certified with real-world emergencies with credentials from one of 3 national bodies: your American Heart Association, your American Red Cross, or American Safety and Health Institute. Instead of simply pretending with mannequins alone, we put you in a situation where you practice your skills in a simulated zero-risk, authentic emergencies with real-time feedback. And we do it in far less time than what you would get in a traditional classroom. And then the immersion goes beyond just the virtual environment, because our solution incorporates external sensors on physical objects, such as the mannequin, that interact with more of the physical reality, as well as in the virtual space as well. And now with our venture funding from our partners at StatZero, we'll be building out that platform even further to be a one-stop shop for VR training and emergency response. And we're excited about a couple of our upcoming modules in for EMTs, our tactical emergency critical care scenarios, and natural and man-made emergency management scenarios for disaster. I have a video of a small snapshot of what our beta module looked like. You can play the video now.
It's playing. There's no sound on this one.
There is no sound. So as you can see, we're with you every step of the way during the training, as well as the assessment portion of it. It seems to be hung up this solo.
Sorry, I'm gonna keep my mic on. I'm gonna try refreshing this one, just because I know this one's really quick. But we'll see if the YouTube plays this time.
Thanks, Matt. As you can see, you're not just an observer with upskills, you're a participant, because that's the best way to do it. Is to just do it. You train so you can retain, so you can execute when people need you most. As we continue on during these crazy times, our minds are on health and wellness more than ever before. And I couldn't be prouder of the work that we're doing here at Upskill VR. And I know with the coming times, as things change as we once knew it, we'll continue to be here for each other now more than ever. You can find me on LinkedIn, or you can also contact us through our website. That's upskillvr.com. And thanks for your time. And with that, I'm gonna kick it back to Matt.
All right, thank you, Carla. I forgot to mention up front that you're the one speaker we had who's actually a repeat. You've been here in the past. All right, thank you, Carla. And with that, we will bring up our last presenter for the evening, who is going to talk a little bit more about what he does before we get into the question and answer session. And that would be Fraser Bowie from the Bowie Group. Looks like he's standing up. And I'll get to his intro slide, let him introduce himself and say what he does, and then get going on his presentation.
Thank you, Matt. Welcome all, and thank you for having me tonight. I give you a little bit of background. I spent 11 years in corporate training with Verizon, and actually brought both AR and VR to their training and operations departments around the globe. So had the opportunity to do some great VR work, and I love all this VR work we're seeing tonight. Great VR work with store robbery, so really capturing that emotion, much like the fire and CPR and all that. It's sometimes hard to make that a reality in a classroom, but being able to bring this interactivity with VR is very cool. And then also with AR, and we can jump to the next slide, I believe. With AR, I introduced a bunch of different things at Verizon as well. And since leaving Verizon, I've been working with companies that are both hardware, software manufacturers, as well as institutions and organizations. So I'm really helping them understand the space, but also tell their own AR and VR story. So with that, we can move to the next slide. So the first thing I want to talk about is a little bit about the world we live in today with temperature checking and that kind of thing. And so today we do a lot of temperature checking with handheld scanners, and we can, whether it's going into a building or a theme park or things like that. And one of the companies I'm working with, a company called Rokid, and they've actually devised smart glasses. So these are AR glasses that have a see-through screen on them, and you can see it also has a camera attached to it on the left, and this is doing thermal image scanning. And what the advantage of this is the ability to do it from a safe distance, as well as the ability to do it from from your field of view. So this may be in a crowd, you want to be sure, so you want to check on a couple of people before you enter that crowd. Those things, or some other spots, perhaps a first responder, they can check temperatures before they approach them. That sort of thing is something that Rokid has done, and actually has implemented around the world in different places to help with those thermal image and scanning of the temperature. And again, this is just one way. The advantage to this, from the handheld scanner to this, is that you can scan more people at a time. So if you're in a large area, large crowds going through, you can scan more people per hour, as well as being socially distanced. And from other things that have similar solutions that scan a lot of people in hour, crowds walking through, or one by one in a line, but without having to stop, they typically are looking at a monitor or somewhere else, and then have to go out and find the person as it walks by. So this allows you to do that with that. And so I have the opportunity here, we have it, bring it here to the U.S. and working with companies on deploying that here in this country. And then if we go to the next slide, here I want to talk about another company I'm working with. This is Care4D and telepresence. So their solution is a remote expert and workflow. So we've heard a lot of that in manufacturing and other things. So again, using smart glasses, using these field of view sort of technology, we're able to connect with others. So while it's been used a lot in manufacturing, we're actually working with a number of clients, both clients here in the U.S. as well as globally, on taking this to the next level and bringing it to the first responders. So think of, let's say we start with an EMS or an ambulance crew that might get to a patient and start working on them, and it may be something. It could be stroke detection, or it could be some other thing that's going on that they may not be familiar with or want to get somebody else's opinion. So right there and then, they can actually call a physician or a specialist to help them out while they're on the scene before they even transport the patient. And so you can see in the main picture at the top, this is them working with somebody, and they would be having a wearable like the ones we saw on the last slide, or the ones that are here on this slide, and being able to reach out to people. Or there may be other things like Carla was saying, she was very nervous when doing CPR for the first time. So imagine actually having the work instructions, or those things that you learned in the classroom, to also be right there in your view, to give you that boost of confidence. Or maybe it's a procedure that has slightly changed, or something you haven't done in a while. So that's what this telepresence brings. And also in the bottom right, you see some firefighters working on a car that's overturned. And another example of this is, again, those procedures that can be right there in front of you, or even perhaps this unit may not have, the car may be in an odd place, or somewhere where there needs to be, once they've stabilized it, there needs to be some thought on how do we attack this. And so you can bring in multiple experts and multiple people, so they're seeing exactly what you're seeing, because you're wearing this view, and they can actually telestrate on the image and the video that you're broadcasting. So they could maybe circle or point out things of where you want to place things in that. So it's not just for the medical use; it can be for the situational use. This, and as I said, this we're using with a couple of clients globally, and it really is extending that VR training, all that great VR training we've been hearing about, and bringing it into the field, and adding that layer of confidence and that layer of expertise that some of these first responders may not have at that moment, given the situation. So again, my contact information's out there. If any of you are looking to see what you can do with augmented reality, and how you can outfit some of your folks with these wearables to really increase the confidence and the ability of bringing experts in that wouldn't necessarily be there, feel free to reach out. That's it. Thank you, Matt.
All right. Thank you, Fraser. And thanks for those of you in the audience who are clapping. Nice to see that. Okay, so now we get to the really fun part of the conversation here, where we're going to throw it to the audience a little bit in terms of how the Q&A is going to work. So I'm throwing a slide up on the side screens right now that you should be able to see. If you would like to ask a question, please click the raise hand button at the bottom of your screen. Wait until I call on you to actually unmute yourself. I don't know if I have to press the unmute button for someone to do that. So let me call someone at random. Hey, Charlie Athanas, I see you sitting in the front row. Can you try and unmute yourself right now and ask a question?
I can. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Thank you very much. Go ahead and mute yourself. All right, so basically that's how it's going to work. If you raise your hand, I will call on you. You press the one button, or you can press the mic on button in the bottom left corner of your screen to unmute yourself, ask your question, and then go ahead and mute yourself again as soon as you're done. And I will, you can ask anything direct to anybody up on the stage, or you can just kind of throw a question out there for all of us to answer, and we're happy to answer. If my panelists would be so kind as to actually stand up and join me, kind of standing along the front of the stage here so that we're not all sitting down. That would be great. Make this a little bit more dynamic and actually use the physical space here. And let's see who's going to be the brave person to actually ask the first question here. If you do raise your hand, by the way, it'll show up really quickly and I can call on you. Also, for those of you who are watching in Facebook land, feel free to shoot a message in the chat and I'm happy to relay it in the room. There is about, from the looks of about a 60 to 90-second delay in Facebook, just so that's known. So who's going to ask the first question? Anybody? Someone's got to have something. Stephen Halitzer. Try unmuting yourself, Stephen. Okay, you are unmuted, but I still can't hear you. You might have like a, oh, there we go. It sounded like we heard you for a second. There we go. I hear somebody. All right, Stephen, I'm going to close your mic temporarily here and see if we can get to somebody else. Anyone else want to give it a shot for the first question here? Yeah, Stephen, that's actually a great example. Stephen, if you're having trouble asking the question out loud, feel free to just type it in the public chat and I can read it off there as well. All right, so this is the point where we have to see if everybody in the audience is still alive. Let's make some people get up and dance or do something. Okay, MB Cool. Try and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Sure. Hey, thanks, everybody. Really great to see all the awesome things everybody's building. And I'm just really excited about training and education in VR in particular. I'm wondering, how are we measuring the success of training? And can any of you share any of the results of that success? Thanks.
All right, that sounds like a pretty general one for everybody. So let's kind of go down the line. Go ahead and start with Ray.
So in the natural gas industry, how we're measuring that success is with the VR. We've done some different pilot groups where you've had employees take the traditional training, and then that group is retested, let's say 3 months later, and then the same thing with the VR training, and you find out the retention rate is much better. And then also too, we've done surveys in the preferred method of training with these same groups, and you find the group that had the traditional training would like to do the VR, and the ones that have done the VR want to stick with the VR. They didn't experience the classroom or the computer-based training, but then after taking the VR, that they were satisfied with that. So that's kind of two ways of measuring it: what the learner prefers, and then also to different groups of taking it, the same types of training.
All right, Fraser, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, so again, similar sort of when I was doing some of the VR training, similar sort of thing, looking at retention, but also we looked at and we did it a little different. When we did the store robbery training, we did not go back and look, as we didn't want to put a price on a life and things like that. But when we did some of the other stuff, we were able to look at things like NPS or the Net Promoter Score or customer satisfaction. So and error rate was another thing. So if you're tracking errors or perhaps time on task, things like that when they're actually doing the work. We looked back and again compared it to those that got the traditional classroom training versus the VR training.
James, anything else to add there?
Yeah, great question. I think, we look at it from a surveying perspective. We tie into learning management systems, but I guess we also have the real-time metric feedback in the scenario so that we understand, effectiveness of suppressing the fire, air usage, time taken, and we really bring the instructors along. So some of the things that we do in the fire industry are really hard to capture using traditional tools. So some of the things we can do in virtual reality, we certainly couldn't do in the real world. So I think we're augmenting the industry with what they can capture now, and I think the real excitement is in understanding how to get all those metrics, and really it's probably a long-term project to understand the improvements.
Carol, anything to add?
I'm gonna kind of piggyback off of what James was just saying because our metrics are pretty much the same as well. We have the real-time feedback during the training and not only for the instructor, but we keep all of that data in our web application so that it can be revisited. And then we've also done a couple pilots where we trained people with our VR software in CPR, and then from the same organization, different group of people without it, and then remeasure them 6 months later without any formal training in the beginning, and looked at the results of the retention rate of it and did it that way. But what's been more effective for us is the real-time feedback, but not only for the organizations, but for the instructors and the trainers in that moment.
Excellent. Looks like our next question was Elijah Skurlock. Gonna try unmuting yourself, Elijah?
Yeah, this was a question for Dr. Mullen. Do you have any U.S. distribution points?
Yeah, great question. We use WS Darley as our distributor in the US. So they're a Chicago-based 100-plus-year-old company. Certainly invite you to reach out. Feel free to contact me if you'd like, and I can put you in contact with them.
All right, that's a real simple one. How about David Skurlock? And David, I can see that you're unmuted, but I can't hear you right now. All right, so yeah, I'm thinking it's a hardware issue. So David, I'll tell you what, if you don't mind trying to just go ahead and chat your question as well, we'll get to it. And I see that Stephen actually managed to get his question into the chat. So we're gonna try and answer that one right now. And the question concerns with emergency responders, access to complex structures with which they are unfamiliar, such as a student center on a campus. Frequently, first responders have only print maps of the edifice, if they have anything at all. Might it be a good idea to contract with large institutions to develop virtual maps of their buildings and make them available online and accessible using smart glasses? I'm going to start that one with Fraser, actually, because I'm wondering if that would be a useful use case for augmented reality, actually.
Yeah, so it is something that we've discussed and that has come up. So, even in building, right? So not just, well, I guess campuses, both in building, outbuilding. So the idea, you've got Google Maps, you've got a couple of other mapping instances that have in building as well as outside, and I'm sure some of the local campuses do that as well. And being able to bring that up, these devices are all GPS enabled, and so the idea that you're wearing this and it comes up, it can lead you to the path of where you need to go to. You can even integrate it into some security systems, right? So imagine the firefighter or the first responder is being asked to go to a dorm because something's happened, right? They dialed 911 and they're rushing over there, but you need a keypad or something to get in. You can even, as you approach that door, pass that information to the smart glasses so that they don't need to wait for somebody or anything like that. So it's a perfect example of where, these wearable devices can really help. And there's, just to let you know, there's devices that are also intrinsically safe. So as we heard earlier about the gas training and natural gas training and things like that, there are devices that are intrinsically safe. So in other situations like that, they could be used.
Anyone else want to chime in on that one?
I can speak for the VR aspect of it, that in our scenarios, when we're approached with different type of issues that arise like that, we can literally recreate in the VR space for the first responders a replica of that building. So when they go through our scenarios, that they can actually be in a replica of what the building would actually look like at the time, based on the information that we were given and the pictures and things of that nature that we take. We can just recreate it so they can practice in an environment that looks like what they would be walking into.
And I think I'd like to just mention that the NASA JPL Audrey project is really exciting, using data fusion and AI to pull streams from social media. So first responders on the way to a job can understand what they're approaching, and to get data feeds of who's in the building, how many are around, what the type of fire is, live pictures and streams and videos and things. And that kind of technology tied in with smart cities is really going to change the way that first responders respond to fires into the future.
Ray, anything to add, or should we just move on?
From the gas, what we tried to do is we create environments that the gas utilities and fire departments see. It's a little bit more general than what maybe some of the other presenters up here, with the exception of the fire training of the different scenarios. But we try to pick realistic environments, realistic things that they're going to see: power poles, meter sets, electric poles, sidewalks, streets, and then we create those scenarios in those environments.
Okay. Higano, if you don't mind, please stay off the stage. So David, I'll get to your question in just a second. We actually had one come in on Facebook that beat you to it. So the question, this one should be a relatively quick one for Carla. Does the CPAR training give haptic feedback, like the amount of chest recoil during compressions? That is from Joel Tim on the Facebook feed.
Yes, we use external sensors for that. We actually use mannequins. So in the real world, you're to everyone else, you're doing impressions on a mannequin. But of course, when you're in the VR headset, that mannequin is human. So all the haptic feedback and things that you would get from the actual mannequin, you're going to feel in VR while you're doing the chest compressions, because we do actually use actual mannequins and external sensors.
All right. And so David's question, this is a general one that I'll throw everyone out. This one comes up quite a bit across a lot of different topics, so I'll let everybody answer really quickly. Is AR taking the lead over VR based on not needing a headset and the fact that the headset seems to still be evolving? We'll go down the line the other way this time. We're going to start with Carla again.
I wouldn't say that it was taking the lead. I think AR has its actual use cases, and so do VR. They're very similar, but very different at the same time. So there are some use cases where AR is absolutely the best option, and there are some situations where AR may not be the best option, where VR is the best option, depending on the use case. So that's kind of my stick on it. I feel like it's depending on what the actual use case is for, which one will be best and which one would actually take the lead in that one.
Yeah, same again. Agree with Carla. In our experience, VR is great for general firefighting training because we can put you in multiple locations. We've done a lot of work with AR over the years, and that's great for specific industries where they have access to their own environments and can train in their own spaces. Example, shipboard firefighting or nuclear power plants or things like that. But certainly when you don't want to be walking around an environment or don't have access to an environment, recreating in VR certainly seems to be the way to go at the moment.
All right, Fraser, you're the AR guy. Come on.
Well, so I will answer very similar. So from a VR perspective and training, I think VR is actually as important as potentially the internet was to training, or even and to learning. It is the idea that you're able to put somebody in a situation you just can't do in real life, or even, for instance, with the CPR training, you can, we can put a mannequin in front of us and go through, and these mannequins are unbelievable nowadays. But imagine being able to throw something at you, like, a fight breaking out right next to you, or, these situations that you just couldn't do in a classroom. So, or a classroom setting where there's live stuff. So I believe VR for training, and especially this sort of training, is fantastic. Where I see AR is it's in some instances for training. In fact, I'm working with a company right now where they actually have, it's a gas utility. They have this huge training facility that they built with houses and everything like that. And we're using AR smart glasses to help them in that training. But where I see the AR really being applied is actually on the job. So when they're actually on the job and doing stuff, but they throw on their fireman's hat, the AR device is attached, and they can get the information and the readings and all this other stuff that they need to fight. So I think they're both equally as important. In the training world, VR is much more important than AR. But in the real world, AR is more important than VR, because obviously you can, VR is you can't see the rest of the real world. So that's where I would go. They're equally as important, but in training, probably VR more important.
Yeah, and similar with GTI in the gas industry, is you're not going to make this huge investment in VR environments and randomization scenarios for painting meter sets, right? It's really not a skilled task. What you're creating VR for is those complex sequence of steps that you want people to practice over and over and over to prevent injury, damage to the system, or jeopardize public safety. So that's where the AR comes in. If it's just information based, let's say painting a meter set, you have a meter set, and here's how you brush off the rust with a wire brush or this or that. AR does that. It's quick information. The way we look at it is similar to at home, right? If there's a question you need to ask, you ask Alexa, and you have the information right there. So what we're doing is creating those applications, whether it AR for those quick information, if a technician's out at the job, that they can do that, or in their training environment, that we don't need to develop a $50,000 or $100,000 training module in VR for them.
All right, so this one I'm just going to throw in a 2 cents answer on my own here, just because I didn't hear it brought up, basically, and that's the concept of AR in training. One of the biggest use cases I've seen for AR is not just in the actual initial delivery of training, but the ability to go back to it, the ability to have access to accurate information, short of having to Google something. So, if you have a piece of equipment that you've trained on, and, okay, fine, maybe you've trained on it for a lot of years, but now you're out in the field, it's something that you trained on 5, 6, 7 years ago. You don't really have that much familiarity with it because you don't practice with it every day. And now you're thrust into a situation where, okay, you immediately need to know how that piece of equipment works inside out because someone's life depends on it, or potentially you need to you need to just know the procedure, because maybe the procedure for how to use that equipment when you're on a particular work site has changed since the 5 years that you trained on it. And I like the ability that, augmented reality, whether it's using image recognition, recognizing an image on the piece of equipment, or recognizing a QR code, or recognizing the device itself, you can immediately, instantly pull up accurate information based on, if you're using your company's app, it's their policy, it's their steps of how to use it, or it's their service rules. There's things like that AR is very useful in the field right now, which does fall into training, even though it's more, training, I guess, in the field or refreshing of information versus having to actually take the time out and do a training course. So that's one of the ways that I like to think that AR is becoming really useful. The other thing that I'll say, which I'll bring up, and we've seen, Rocket's got their glasses out, and there's the HoloLens 2, and there's Magic Leap, and there's lots of AR glasses out there. but I don't think AR is really quite at the level of VR in terms of equipment yet. And I think we're still a good, 2 or 3, 4 years away from seeing, the iPhone 1 of AR glasses. I think we're still in the early phases of that, whereas, maybe the HTC Vive and the Oculus Rift were kind of like the iPhone 1 of VR systems. So I think as we see AR glasses come out, we're going to see a lot more use cases for those too. And with that, I will call on the next person for a question. David still has his hand up, but he's already asked one. So I'm going to go with Sheila Perinas. Sheila, you want to try unmuting and asking?
Hi, can you hear me?
I hear you, Sheila. Go ahead.
Great, thanks. Hi, everyone. This is just for all the panelists. Yes, I have a question here. Let me go back to it. And down. Okay. Have you had any latency challenges in using the broadcast from field responders, like in using real-time VR communications? And I also have another question: if have you had an issue with HIPAA compliance? So that's the question. Thanks.
So the questions are broadcast latency and HIPAA compliance issues. And I'm going to go the opposite direction this time again and start with Ray.
Apologize. What? Repeat the question, please.
The first, go ahead, Sheila.
Hi. Okay. Have you had issues with latency in broadcasting communication when you're trying to use real-time VR or communication through VR?
Yes, excellent question. It was kind of coming in static on my side. So yes, we don't have that when we're in the environment in the multi-user. If we're doing like a trainer with trainees, multiple users, no problem whatsoever. Where we have the latency is if we're using like this event, and I want to go into my headset and broadcast it and train you on this environment and show you how to use it. Yes. So we are working through those technology issues through the different platforms, such as Teams is not as good as Microsoft Teams is not as good as maybe a Google or a Zoom, but some of our utilities for security purposes have not opened up Zoom, right? So those are issues we're working through when we're trying to stream it in there and show others.
All right, Fraser, want to jump in?
Yeah, so from a VR's perspective, I mean, just from VR, AR, anything perspective, right? It's all about how good your connection is, and when building a training facility, it's certainly something that you should be very aware of is how these folks are connecting. We've all seen in the last few months, from TV hosts to our Zoom meetings and all that, we know who has the best network and who doesn't, right? As far as the way they're going in and out. So I would definitely, coming from a company like Verizon, I know a lot about the wireless world and how it all works, and really there's so many different factors, from interference of networks and all that could hurt that latency. But my experience has been, with the right setup, you don't see that latency in VR. Same thing with AR. In fact, the telepresence software that I'm working with for these remote assistant and workflow in the AR space, they have it so that the communications, they actually fluctuate the frame rate of the video based on the bandwidth that they have, so they can keep that as instantaneous as possible. So sometimes it gets a little choppier because they go down to 10 frames a second or 5 frames a second because the signal isn't weak, but they know the delivery of that information is more important than the frame rate. And then as far as HIPAA compliant, telepresence is 100% HIPAA compliant. And I know some other VR stuff that I work with, there's certain things you have to abide by, like sometimes when there's systems I've worked with where they use an iPad to control some of the content in in the VR headset. So they're using that control over Bluetooth versus over Wi-Fi and things like that, just to be HIPAA compliant. But there are rules out there to make sure that everything can be HIPAA compliant.
All right, James.
Yeah, look, I guess we made a conscious decision to store our data locally on the systems because we do a lot of work with military and also fire services that might be going out to remote rural. So we don't assume that we have network connection. Therefore, because we're local, we can maintain some great frame rates and we don't seem to have too many issues.
All right, Carla.
Same here. Our web application is stored pretty much locally, so we don't have to worry about people's information kind of getting out in areas where it shouldn't be. And then also because we're working with different jurisdictions, the individual trainees have randomized numbers, so there's no way of actually identifying the person within the training environment without actually having the information, and only the organization and our web application actually have that information.
All right, do we have any, I'm gonna put one quick call out again for questions from the audience or questions from Facebook, and if not, I've got one. A little bit timely, actually, based on current events. I don't see any hands going up, and I'm gonna start with Carla again, just because I know you've kind of got some experience with this kind of training. But I want to, I'm not sure how many of you have been following the news with the massive explosion that took place in Beirut yesterday. And in terms of just trying to think through ways that VR and AR can be useful, training for something like effectively an explosion that levels city blocks, several of them, or mass casualty events or things like that. The types of training that it's really hard to set up a realistic physical scenario that simulates something like that. Where have you seen VR or AR based training that would be helpful for, getting first responders for a good understanding of what it's like to actually be in a scenario like that, be in a situation like that? Because obviously nobody ever wants to actually be in that situation, but it does come up. And I'm going to kind of start with Carl and go the other way here.
So your question is kind of two parts. So I'm gonna start with the easiest part. Have I actually seen it? Personally, no, I haven't, but that was part of the modules, our later modules, when it came down to our natural disasters and man-made disasters, to be able to prepare not only our first responders, but our emergency management specialists to be able to handle the mitigation and what comes after those events. So what we would do in VR is take the events that have happened previously and reconstruct them into a virtual reality environment and have the scenario play again, and put the key players into the scenario so they can basically do their jobs in VR and then get the experience that they will need when it comes down to recovery and things of this nature, or doing actual full-blown tabletop exercises in VR. It would simulated actual disasters to be able to further prepare people for things that they may not be able to think of or may not be able to truly practice, such as an explosion or levee breaking or whatever. We can recreate that in real time for them, and then gauge their performance and their response afterwards, so they can go back and do their own R&D and create systems around what they need to do based on the events that we created for them in VR.
Okay, James?
Yeah, look, the tragic what happened in Beirut yesterday, I believe many of the over 100 killed were first responders and firefighters, so that's tragic for our community. I guess we look to create environments, as Carla said, based on the data that's out there from the National Fire Protection Authority, from near misses, from line of duty deaths. We actually, as part of our rollout in Australia, we surveyed around about 800 firefighters and got their response on their acceptance of VR training. And from them, we pull a pool of training environments, and we work with our distribution partners around the world to get training environments from them as well, so that we're creating learnings that are, as I mentioned before, the 1%. Most firefighters will go through their whole career not having to deal with an event like what happened in Beirut, and we certainly hope that's the case, but we need to be prepared for that 1%.
Okay, Fraser.
Yeah, so I can't remember who created it, but I have actually been through I think it was a simulation for the aftermath of an earthquake in LA. So, buildings falling, cars on fire, that sort of thing. Even the idea that the fire truck or the EMS vehicle couldn't get down the road because wires and things like that. So it was obviously not at the scale of what happened in Beirut, but there was this, and it was quite good the way it made you go through and remember steps and even just making you notice that the downed wire was next to a car that was leaking gas and things like that, just to get you to really understand what to look for. I think with that sort of thing, it's kind of Matt, what you were saying earlier, it's one of those things that you hopefully never come across, and you never do. At Verizon, we did store robbery training. It wasn't because there was a lot of store robberies. It was just we felt that in situations that people did it, that it may have happened to them, they may not have really understood the impact, so they did not follow policy and things like that. So that's why we really wanted to. I mean, we held 22,000 people up at gunpoint, right? So we really put them in that emotional situation. So I think using VR to do that is really good, because it's not just about taking care of the person but it's being aware of the situation as well. So I have been through kind of training like that was really good. But I also think it's something that can be translated to, those are the directions, those are the information that perhaps after it happens, you're able to pull up, because you may train on it once a year, you may train on it once every 5 years, but you're able to pull it up in that moment. It is also good to have in those AR smart glasses.
I was going to say, one of the things I'm actually before I get to Ray here, I'm wondering, because obviously with an explosion that big, it's actually taking building down. So I think, gas services is a huge thing to actually be aware of. But from an AR perspective and an AR glasses perspective, I'm wondering if it would almost be helpful to be able to view, buildings that, sadly aren't there anymore, just to kind of know what you're walking into if you're kind of going up one of those streets where things have been taken down and knocked down by just by the shockwave. But Ray, I'll let you go next on the.
Well, just to add to that, yeah, and I think that is definitely a point, but it's also the idea of being able to get that live feed to those, maybe it's the city planner or that's able to give you that information as you look around as well. So, having that connection to others maybe not in the area can also be really helpful.
Yeah. Okay, Ray.
So with the gas industry, what we try to do is, if you think of that explosion, there's a lot of activities involved with that, and somebody could be in VR. If you tried to capture everything, you're going to be in there for hours, right, responding to that. So what we try to do is break it down into tasks. So if you think of first responders, the first thing they do is they set up the incident command on the site. So for those that aren't familiar with first responders, so that would be the fire department and any responding municipalities, they identify an area that they're going to run the show there. So depending on what your responsibility. So we would create, and we're in the process of doing incident command. So part of that would be, what's the wind direction, right? What's the location? Are you going to be able to get a lot of people into this area and give them updates to do that? Because, like in a gas company, when we have an explosion, we use the term, you might as well put up a mailbox because you're going to be here for a while. This isn't a I'll be home for dinner type of event. So you're going to be there for a long time. You're going to need some areas, some space, get equipment, tools, trucks, whatnot. Yeah, you also have a staging area. So you're looking at a map, you're identifying that, what time of day is it, is there traffic we need to block off. So you break this training into different sections, different modules to secure the scene. And then you create scenarios similar to what Flame Systems has done. Then you create this building where you're attacking. Maybe you're navigating through. You're creating a fireball where the gas service is, because a medium pressure service, this fireball is going to be blowing 45 feet in the air, right? So you break it into modules and you build up to that entire event where somebody can go in 15, 20 minutes at a time, maybe for 10 different modules to handle that scene. Otherwise, what happens, you get halfway through the module. If you try to build something too big and at the end it scores out as a failure, well, it should only score out that section you did wrong, and then that's an opportunity to improve on. So that's what we're doing in the gas industry, to be able to respond to incidents like that. And we have that happen all the time in the natural gas industry. There's probably a half dozen, 10 of those type events in the U.S. here that we try to recreate to be able to better respond to that effectively and efficiently.
All right. Well, with that, I think we are going to end the official Q&A here and wrap things up pretty quickly, and then we'll open up the open networking. I'll unmute the room and let people talk individually. So if you guys want to take your seats again, that'd be great. I'll wrap up with a couple more pieces of information, and then we'll end the event. So really quickly, let me advance some slides and just get some information out there. Next month, we will be hosting, on September 2nd, we will be hosting our meetup on the manufacturing industry. I guess I didn't go through this at the very beginning, so for those of you who haven't been here, hopefully, it looks like everyone actually who came into the Verbella space is still here. Terrence, I'll ask this question if there's time at the end. But that said, what we do with VRAR Chicago is, again, we pick a different industry every single month. And we will bring in experts from that industry to talk about how that industry and how VR and AR is being used specifically in that industry. So September 2nd is the manufacturing industry. And we're working on some pretty cool partnerships for that one that hopefully we'll be able to announce pretty soon. With that, we hope we'll see you there. Given some of the early conversations we're having, I expect the auditorium to be a lot more full on that one. The next thing I'll ask is, again, please take a moment, those of you on Facebook as well as those of you in the room here, take a moment and find us on social media. We have all of our tags up on the slide at the center screen right now. I'd love it if you could, like us, like our pages, follow us, share our posts. Please do the same for our speakers and our sponsors. They take time out of their day to be here. No one's being compensated for this. It's all volunteer. And finally, the one thing I do want to share is that the presentation that you've been seeing up here, for those, I did have one comment on Facebook where somebody said, can we zoom in on the screens to see the presentation a little bit better? The presentations will be posted on the vrarchicago.com webpage, as well as a link to the live stream video of this that went out on Facebook. So it's there forever and it's not going to go away. So for those of you who want to go back and review a section of it, or if you want to, just catch somebody's comment or even snip some of the video, feel free to do that. It'll be on Facebook, again, VRAR Chicago's Facebook page afterwards, and we'll have a link to it on vrarchicago.com. So with that, again, like us, follow us. You'll be able to keep up with us on what's coming up and other things that we have going besides just the meetup that you can see up on the slide on the center screen right now. Thank you for being here. Thank you to all of our panelists and our speakers for taking time out of your day and sharing your expertise. And thank you to our sponsors, Verbella for providing us this virtual space, 1871 for continually sharing our marketing messages and providing visible space, which we can hopefully get back to soon, and Bundle AR. And with that, I'm going to unmute the room. For those of you watching on Facebook, I'm going to probably shut down the Facebook live feed in about 60 seconds. But really quick before we go, sorry, I had one more guy who raised his hand. I had to say he had a question, but I don't see him right now. I don't know if he wants to try to raise his hand one more time, or if he was just possibly playing with the controls in the room. All right, with that, I'm going to unmute the room, and we'll end it here and go to open networking. So feel free to talk to people from VRAR Chicago. There's several of us around the room. I see Charlie Athanas walking around right now. Chris Wren is sitting over on the stage right side. Tom, I'm sure, is in the room somewhere. I'm not sure where. And the panelists should be hopefully sticking around as well. Thank you very much. The room is unmuted, and I'm going to turn spatial audio back on, which means if it's a little too loud where you are talking to people, feel free to just grab whoever you're talking to and move them to a farther away, different part of the room, and it'll get quieter. And thanks again to our Facebook audience here. We do love having you. This has been a very good Facebook audience. We've had a lot. I don't think we did below 15 viewers the entire time for the event, which is great. And we got up to at least 30. So once again, thank you very much. I'm going to end the live stream in a few seconds. We hope to see you next month. Please try to make it into the actual Verbella space. And also feel free to connect with myself or any of the other people from VR AR Chicago or any of the presenters. And especially all of our sponsors as well. Thanks again.